What's up, Christy One Love Fellowship for Followers of Christ? Um, I just want to do a quick check-in, and yes, I'm hibernating right now, so I'm just wearing my most comfy clothes because I'm mostly staying in bed and like the recliner with a blanket. So there's really no need to get dressed and made up, and I wasn't intending to make content, but I just wanted to check in. There's been a lot going on, and I'm not happy about it. And I think that we do need to stand up and take action. And if the current administration insists on acting against its own citizens with violence and deadly force, then it stands to reason that the citizens might have to match that level of violence and deadly force in order to defend ourselves. I mean, I would rather it not have to be that way. I would prefer peaceful negotiations and, mediation, but some people can't be reasoned with, and those people seem to be the ones in charge right now. So that's a problem. Now, I am really annoyed. Okay, here's what I want people to really think about. Pay attention to how quickly the exact same people who are constantly arguing in favor of the Second Amendment, people who have literally been in the whole some deaths are necessary for that right camp, right? Because the right to carry a firearm in this country is such an important right to these people. But if the person carrying the firearm is on the other side, if it's someone that they consider other, how fast does it become a problem? How fast does it become an issue? How fast do they justify someone being murdered because he happened to have a gun on him, even though he never drew it, he never pulled it, he never once used it or aimed it or in any way? There was literally no aggression coming from him at all. He just happened to have a firearm on his person at the time when he was being assaulted by federal agents who were only there assaulting citizens. They weren't actually arresting any criminals. They were assaulting citizens because they're so unprofessional that they can't do their job without getting distracted by the citizen protesters, because they clearly should not be there, because they clearly are not doing anything that is truly helpful to the citizens of this country. Like the insanity, the spiral of irony is just off the charts. It's crazy. And the thing is now you're going to see people who previously, were calling for more gun control, supporting gun rights, and you're going to see people who in the past have wanted unfettered access to firearms saying, now it's a problem. And it's insane to me how fast this bipolar nation flip-flops as soon as the narrative, suits them in a different way. It's just crazy. Stop. Sorry, my dog insists on licking the blankets. Anyway, I have a love-hate relationship with the Second Amendment personally, okay? And it has to do with a lot of things, but while I personally am not someone who owns currently or has ever owned a firearm, I have considered it after a violent assault, after having that experience and law enforcement not stepping up to help me seek justice in any way, and being alone with a small female child, by the way, and, feeling like I needed maybe to protect myself and my child and our home. So, I definitely considered it, and I even went out looking at them and, you know, seeing what my options were and holding them to get a feel and things like that. But the thing is I have trauma around guns from my childhood because I was forced to be around them all the time, and I was forced to witness adults being irresponsible with firearms, and I was forced to shoot a shotgun as a small child against my will. And the trauma from that, even though of course it's it's minuscule compared to other traumas that I've experienced, but there is trauma from that experience. And the main issue of that is that it turned me off to firearms. It made me anti-gun. And so the thing is while there is a huge part of me that is very anti-gun, anti-firearm, there's also a part of me that understands the necessity and appreciates the right to have access to that for protection. And the thing about it is as long as there is a Second Amendment right to own a weapon like that in this country, then I'm very adamant about that right being protected equally, so that there's not any one particular group or another who has access while other groups don't have access. Now, granted, there are individuals who shouldn't have access based on their behavior, based on their history, based on patterns of lawlessness, patterns of corruption, patterns of aggression, patterns of, harm to self or others. Like, I can understand people who have a history of, I can get that. But at the same time, when we start talking about saying, certain groups based on other arbitrary labels, like, for example, there was a time when the establishment did not want black people to have access to firearms, like, everyone could have a gun, but then when black people had guns, it was a problem. And it's that type of thing. Like, I wouldn't want to live in a world where autistic people can't have a gun. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine being someone who's in that group in a world where everyone can have a gun except for you. And that's the slippery slope that I wouldn't want to slide into. I would rather no one have access to a gun than for it to be arbitrary, to where whoever's in power can say, okay, well, these people can have guns, but these people can't. That's very dangerous. So for me personally, even though I am not a gun enthusiast and I don't really care for I would rather live in a world where we don't need them. Honestly, I'd rather live in a world where they were never even invented. Because humans existed long before guns did. And you know what I mean? Like, anyway, even though I feel that way, I also feel that as long as we live in a country where that is part of our culture and it is, what we have established as one of our rights, then I very much want to protect that and make sure that it is exercised responsibly, but that it is also being granted equally. And so for me, for them to say that because this gentleman had a weapon on his person at the time when he was assaulted. He didn't assault anyone. He was assaulted. But because while they were assaulting him, they happened to come across a weapon on his person, that somehow justifies them then murdering him after removing the weapon. And if that's the type of shenanigans that you want to support, then you honestly need to be locked up in an asylum, because you are insane, because that is insane. That is insane. And anyone who supports this 922 is insane. And I refuse to support anyone in any position of power or leadership who is clearly exhibiting signs of mental insanity. So if you are literally going to stand in front of a camera, Kristi Noem, and lie to the entire world, even though we all have eyeballs and we can see the footage ourselves, we know what happened, and you're still going to attempt to gaslight us on national television, on the world stage, You clearly are an insane person. So no, we're not going to listen to you. We're not going to respect you. You have no authority whatsoever any longer. Any of you. Any of you. The second you stand in front of a camera, in front of the whole entire world, and you attempt to gaslight us as your constituents, you lose your authority as our leadership. So right now, we're the ones who are declaring whatever the civilian equivalent of martial law would be, because clearly our leadership has failed us. So we should not be subject to having to obey them any longer. They clearly don't have a respect for us. They clearly don't value our lives as citizens of this nation. So why should we respect their authority any longer? Riddle me that. I don't know who this will help or if it'll help anyone at all, but I hope it helps someone tonight. Just remember, you are loved, you are forgiven, you can be saved if you get your crap together and do the right thing, Donald Trump. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done or what's been done to you, 11:11, you can repent, you can repair, you can be redeemed. Much love.